I want to thank all of you for coming tonight. If some of you are new with us tonight, we're the Potluck Insurgency, a grassroots group that got started back in January 2017 when we decided to see if there were some other Democrats here in Johnson County who wanted to continue getting together to share both our sorrows and our hopes for, what might eventually happen. So we're glad you joined us tonight. We have met about once a month until pandemic, had wonderful house parties and lots of great speakers and good times together. And we've been continuing to meet about once a month since we've only been able to do it on Zoom. And I should mention, we've raised a lot of money for candidates too along the way, which I'm very proud of. So I feel like a deep breath is in order tonight because here we are at last. After enduring 4 years of dishonesty, incompetence, bigotry, egotism, it seems to me that we have finally arrived at the moment when we can truly and realistically hope and seize the opportunity to change things for the better in so many ways that I surely do not need to enumerate for all of you tonight. Our goal here tonight is to inform and inspire all of you who have joined us. We want to make sure that all of you have the information that you need about how to vote safely and make sure that your vote is counted, and to help you become resources for other people who have questions. There's been a lot of, as you know, a lot of rhetoric around, how the mails aren't safe, the mail isn't safe, et cetera, et cetera. So we're going to hear from John Deeth in a little bit about voting and make sure we answer all the questions that you might have about absentee ballots, et cetera, et cetera. And we also would like to inspire you to get involved. And if you are already involved and actively helping out the coordinated campaign or individual candidates campaigns, we hope to inspire you to do more. The thing about this time of hope, though, is that seems to me we all need to work very hard every day in order to achieve what we are hoping for. To start us off tonight, I'd like to introduce a very special guest, very special to me, certainly, an author, teacher, musician, and dad, David Griswold, who is also my nephew. And he is going to read you a very amusing but poem with a very serious theme about voting suppression and getting out the vote and all the work we need to share to make that happen. So David, I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you, my dear.
Well, thank you for that rousing introduction. You checked the major boxes of, I think, the things that I'm up to these days: writing, playing music, and dad is definitely a big piece of it. And just branching off what you're saying, first of all, Roseanne, thank you for having me here. I think you said you didn't need to enumerate all the different things, but as you were speaking, that I think lays a great foundation for where some of what I'm about to share with you guys came from. I think it's just in the midst of all that's been happening these 4 years, it can be pretty tiring. And I think we all need to dig deep and we need to support each other. And I think in addition to all the things you're going to hear about tonight, right? We got to vote. We got to make calls. We can send letters. We can donate. I also just want to push everybody to reflect a little bit, especially in this final stretch. What do you have to offer? Because the gifts that you have, who you are as a person, connecting with others and offering that inspiration in this home stretch, I think is really important. I'm here in California, and I feel like, it feels especially important to me to connect with others outside of my state, particularly in places like Iowa, where I think there's this incredible opportunity. There's so much energy that I sense and so much possibility to deliver some really important victories on the Democratic side of the aisle. And so I offer this next piece. This thing that I wrote really was my answer to the question, what do I have to offer in this moment? And I'm a writer of children's books, and this emerged in response to that inquiry. So I'm really glad to get to share it with you all. This is a sequel to The Sneetches by Dr. Seuss. So here we go. Since we last saw the Sneetches with stars and without, they seemed to be happy, all seemed without doubt to be wanting the best for each Sneetch of each sort. At least so it seemed from the last Sneetch report. But since then, some Sneetches away in an attic have been hatching a plan a bit less democratic. A plan that began with that monkey McBean, who knew greedy Sneetches were keen on his schemes. It used to be stars, said McBean with a grin, that determined which Sneetches would lose and would win. But now that each Sneetch has a vote, has a say, if you want to rule beaches, there's only one way. You need a machine that is sneaky and slick. My Sneetch vote suppressor can fix this up quick. First, tell me which Sneetches have broken some law, said McBean to the Sneetches who stood there in awe. Though they knew it was wrong to single some out, they all pointed fingers at Sneetches without. McBean turned a dial and jotted down notes, and his awful machine began sucking up votes. And though some with stars were distressed and unnerved, there were others who argued this fate was deserved. There need to be rules, said one star-bellied Sneetch, as McBean slipped him cash and then dashed from the beach. You see, said McBean, why you can teach a Sneetch. As the Sneetch vote suppressor was picking up steam, McBean fired up the next part of his scheme. If you want to rule beaches, you have to draw lines. If you draw them at night, why then nobody minds. My Sneetch beach dividers, my latest design. That night, like he said, it crisscrossed the beaches, dividing up sections for each of the Sneetches, who awoke to discover a very strange thing, that the Sneetches without were all stuck in one ring, while the Sneetches with stars had 2 rings, no 4. Though a lot wasn't clear, it was clear who had more. And when those without said these lines were unfair, that star-bellied Sneetch, with his snoot in the air, told them, my friends, we drew these with care. These lines are the lines that have always been there, as he winked at McBean, sitting up in his chair. But McBean wasn't done. He had one more machine. It was ugly and fearsome and gruesome and green. Behold, said McBean to the greediest Sneetches, the key to maintaining your rule of the beaches. The bamboozler, McDoozler 3006, guaranteed to confuse and sow doubt with its tricks. Now some Sneetches knew things were quite out of hand. McBean had done more than those Sneetches had planned, but the hunger for power was a terrible itch, and so no one spoke up as McBean flipped the switch. And the boozler McDoozler began roaming beaches, printing false statements, confusing the Sneetches. Though voting was planned for November the 3rd, the Doozler told Sneetches, that's not what I heard. It said left was right, and the right thing was wrong, and the wrong thing was left, which was right all along. And perhaps worst of all, it convinced unsure Sneetches that their vote wouldn't count, wouldn't help shape the beaches. The Doozler, divider, suppressor, and more all did their job well, and they tilted the score. And the greediest Sneetches gained more and more power, while McBean just got richer with each passing hour. That's the way that it was, and it likely would be, if not for some Sneetches like you and like me. Some Sneetches who chose to do more than just vote, but who called and who texted and canvassed and wrote, who registered, rallied, remembered the roles that each Sneetch must play getting out to the polls. The Sneetches with stars and the Sneetches without reached out to each other. They broke through the doubt. And though his machines grew louder and bolder, McBean and his schemes reduced to a smolder. Despite the suppression, division, confusion, the Sneetches together broke through the illusion that their votes didn't matter. They mattered a lot. And when they were counted, they got what they sought. But was the fight over? Most certainly not. Because though they had won and had learned quite a bit, McBean was still lurking, refusing to quit. The only way Sneetches could keep the beach fair was by staying involved and remaining aware and keeping an eye out for snoots in the air. In this sense, their story is yet to be told. It's up to each Sneetch as to what will unfold. It begins in this moment with work and with trust, that when I stand for you, then the we stands for us. That's the sequel to the
David,
Sneetch.
thank you.
Oh man, it was so fun. Thank you so much. Hopefully that serves as a little bit of inspiration to kick off the meeting. I'm really excited to see what you guys are up to.
Oh, we loved it. Thank you so much. Just perfect for tonight. Thank you, thank you. So I hope you stay with us. We're going to go to, a very sober subject right now of voting. And we are going to start off for a few minutes with Janice Weiner and Emily Silliman, who are going to talk a bit about voter protection in Johnson County. I know a lot of people have been concerned about that, so we wanted to spend a few minutes doing that tonight. And then John Deeth from the Auditor's Office will join us to talk about what's been happening there at the Auditor's Office this week with the early voting for the first week, and then he'll answer questions. We'll make sure we have plenty of time for questions tonight. So Emily, are you up next?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Emily.
Thank you, Roseanne, and thank you, David. So getting down to the topic, Iowa has a pretty safe and accountable voting system. And there's a lot of news out there that's about other places. So I think it's easy to get confused. Our ballots are paper, and the voting machines that the ballots are fed into are not connected to the internet. All absentee ballots are counted, and this year they will be opened starting on Saturday, October 31st, which should allow enough time for the count to be reported out on election night. And that's another thing you'll hear from other states, that the count won't be available for days and days and days. That's not true in Iowa. Heck, even the mail has been reliable this week. Most people I know, when the ballots were mailed on Monday, got their ballot on Tuesday. So even the mail seems to be working right now. I think there's more fear out there than actual threat to our voting system. Nevertheless, we are taking nothing for granted. Johnson County Democrats have a voter protection team, of which Janice Weiner and I are a part, as well as Ed Cranston. And I didn't see if anybody else on the call was part of our team or not. We are part of an initiative coming from Battleground Iowa in Des Moines. And it's an initiative to recruit lawyers and others who are to do poll watching, observe the opening and counting of our absentee ballots, and to do ballot chase and cure. And they're showing the volunteer sign-up form, and I'll put the link in the notes. We will be present and report any problems at polling places. We will help voters who have been turned away or whose ballot has been rejected. We will help the voter fix the problem so that the vote counts. Working with voters is the chase and cure part, and that is primarily a phoning function. The poll watchers that we are recruiting, that's an in-person volunteer gig. You actually have to be there Uh, our sheriff's office, another point is that our sheriff's office has said that they will not tolerate anything like what happened in Virginia when early voting started. People with guns showing up to intimidate voters standing in line. So far, everything seems quiet, and of course, our auditor's office is doing a fantastic job with the early vote. So if you observe a problem with voting, call the voter hotline that I will put in the chat. And the voter protection team is recruiting both poll watchers and phoners to do chase and cure. Thank you. Oh, and I wanted to give Janice a chance to chime in if there was anything to add.
All right, thanks very much, Emily. So we, the Iowa Democratic Party and a group of lawyers is doing this training. I just did the training today to be a poll watcher for the early voting sites, for the satellite sites. And it basically we'll be out there with a lanyard on, and we'll have our phones, and we'll be reporting in regularly. And our job is, if there's an issue, to try and talk to the voter, and as Emily said, to try and get it resolved. The goal is to have the person vote a regular ballot, and for the last resort, for the voter to vote a provisional ballot that then has to be followed up on. The effort, I'm personally both very impressed and very confident in the effort that's being led by Des Moines, and that we are part of here. And I also am not particularly worried about our voting sites here. Our auditor runs a very tight ship. The Johnson County Sheriff is very determined that there won't be problems. And even at the state level, the state Attorney General has pushed out on social media and elsewhere the legislation that makes it very clear that interfering with people's right to vote or intimidating is a felony. So if you have any issue, please don't hesitate to call the voter protection hotline. There will be good people on it. And I think that we're going to have really amazing vote numbers out of here. But before I introduce John Deeth from the auditor's office, the one message that I would give you, that would give everyone else that you talk to, is make a plan to vote and keep with your plan. Follow your plan. Don't change. You can change it. It makes it a little tougher sometimes for folks at the voting locations, but make a plan and stick by it. My plan was to request absentee ballots. We requested our ballots. They came in the mail. Our household voted them. I made sure they were signed, and then I put them in the drop box at the Johnson County Auditor's Office. So there's a variety of ways of routes you can take. And John Deeth from the Auditor's Office, who is not just Mr. Caucus, he's Mr. Data when it comes to voting, is here to talk to you a little bit about how the first week of early voting went, what the numbers look like, and what we can expect going forward. So over to you, John.
Thanks, Janice. It's been a really exciting week this week. Little confession, I kind of love my job. So Monday morning, first thing, we loaded up the truck and took 32,000 ballots up to the Cedar Rapids Regional Post Office in order to try to save a day of turnaround time. And most voters were reporting their ballots coming into their mailboxes on Tuesday. That's when I got mine, and I took it in and dropped it off in the drop box on Wednesday morning. We installed the drop boxes on Tuesday. For those of you who haven't been down there, they're both on the south side of the administration building. It's a separate drive up from the drive-through voting. So the wait is a lot shorter. I've only seen a couple of cars at a time coming through, but it's a steady stream all day long. Me and my colleagues go out about 3 or 4 times a day to empty it out. We empty it out last thing at night, and then first thing again in the morning. And there's been thousands of ballots that have come through there. They started arriving in the mail in significant numbers on Thursday. We had Saturday delivery. We're a little scared about Tuesday simply because we have a holiday weekend in there, so we're going to get clobbered. But we have a good crew working on organizing them, putting them into our numbered boxes, searching for problems, and then addressing problems with voters as quickly as possible. The drive up has been a bigger success than I imagined it would be. We've been running we've topped 700 voters a day every day this week, and we topped 800 on Friday. So we ran a total of 3,737 people through the parking ramp last week. And Ed, if you got those numbers available, I'm not visual here, so I've been putting numbers up on the auditor's website every day, and I'll keep updating those every night.
John, I've got that showing right now.
Excellent, thanks, Ed. I did a little math, and we are the Democrats are running about more than 8-1 lead in returned ballots. Now that's not going to hold. My gut check is that the Republicans are holding out till later or holding out till Election Day. We're a very, very Democratic county, but we're not a 8-1 Democratic county. We're more like a 3-1 Democratic county. So, but just keep those ballots coming back in, and then we will contact voters as quickly as possible if there's any problems. We've had a few people who reopened them or forgot to seal them, and then I've been mailing the replacement ballots out to people, or they've been fixing those problems at the drive-up. The drive-up wait has averaged between 15 and 30 minutes. Sometimes it's been up to an hour, but people have been very patient and have been very gracious to the auditor's office staff. The only grumbling we've heard is a little pedestrian versus vehicle grumbling as to who's waited in line longer, but we're working on a system for that. Other than that, it's going very, 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 very well. And I guess that's all I got for rambling, and I would be happy to take any and all questions.
Ed, do you want to unmute yourself, Ed?
Yeah, at the bottom of the screen, if you click on chat, maybe you've done that already. Click on chat, type in a question, and we can go ahead and share that with John. Or just go ahead and also at the bottom of the screen, click on participants. And then once you open that window, at the bottom of that window, there's an option to raise your hand. So if you'd like to ask a question, verbally,
you can
just
moderate that for me.
Sure, I'll be glad to do that. So just either raise your hand or go ahead and type in a question. So who's got our first question tonight?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Jane.
A friend of mine requested an absentee ballot, and she hasn't gotten one. And I don't know if it was the one through the ones that were recalled by the big law, court case.
Yeah, that little lawsuit we had. We are still finding a few people who have not heard about the fact that those pre-filled requests were invalidated. We had over 17,000 of those. I looked at the numbers this morning. Most people have replaced those requests or have gone through the drive up. We still have 4,300 people who filled out a Johnson County pre-filled request form and have not subsequently requested a ballot. Now, some of those people may have made a different voting plan, but every day in the elections email, I find one or two people who are asking, where's my ballot? Then I go and investigate and find out, unfortunately, you used one of the forms that was ruled invalid in court. And then they're usually pretty understanding and they update their voting plan accordingly. But we still have some people who have not gotten the word that those requests were invalidated. Anybody who has any concerns about not having received their ballot yet, we are now turning things around next day. So if your request comes in on Wednesday, we'll be getting your ballot out the door on Thursday. But people who are were in that first group who don't have their ballot by, I'd say, Tuesday, should definitely be contacting the office. Of course, don't forget tomorrow is a postal holiday. So
I'm wondering, will they get notified at all? I mean, eventually, will you give them a letter or a phone call to say
We don't notify people when we haven't gotten their ballot. We don't notify people that their ballot was received in good condition and it has been counted. Notification happens when we get a ballot and there's a problem with it. First, we try to call, and then we send a letter. The most common problems are you didn't sign it, or there's a problem with the seal. Sometimes people will open the ballot back up, or other times they just simply forget to seal it. One of the things that there's been a lot of discussion about, I never heard the term naked ballots before this year, but that's a rather colorful term, and I'm never going to forget it. Pennsylvania has a law where if your ballot is not in the secrecy folder, it doesn't count. Iowa doesn't have that. If you forget the secrecy folder, you're fine. But if you go, oops, I forgot to put my ballot in the secrecy folder, and you open your envelope back up, then you have a problem. So.
Hey, John, I have a question. As far
Yeah.
as the lines, is there a better time than another to, when's the shortest lines for the
I
drive-through
think
so far?
the best bet is probably mid to late morning. You get a morning rush, then there's a little bit of a lull, and then starting with lunch and then escalating through the afternoon. Usually late afternoon is the busiest time. It's actually, the pattern is looking a lot like it did when people were voting in the lobby. So mid to late morning is your best bet if you're in a hurry.
And
Oh,
also,
the other
John,
thing
as
I
far
forgot
as,
Yeah,
as
go
far
ahead,
as
Ed.
determining if your ballot's been received, going to sos.gov, is that the best site to go to?
Yeah, that's the one. Everybody in the state is using that. There's about a day's lag time on that between when we receive the ballot in and when it shows up there. So you can always ask us. That's what we're there for. I forgot to mention one thing, which is that satellite voting starts tomorrow. We have a site in Tiffin tomorrow. And if you check the auditor's website, there's a full schedule. We're going to be in Solon and Swisher this week, and then late in the week and over the weekend, we're going to be in Coralville and North Liberty. So those opportunities are still going to be there. They're going to be safe. They're going to be socially distanced. I don't know. I think the wait time will probably be shorter than it will be at the parking ramp. But those are, if that's your voting plan, that's a good voting plan. The big one we're looking forward to is the Iowa Memorial Union site the week of the 19th through the 23rd. That is going to be our best opportunity to get our student population voted.
Thanks, John.
So I apologize, but I need to go and deal with some other
Okay.
stuff. But
Hey, thanks,
Thank you,
Janice. I see Janice does have a question. She said, did Travis send out a letter to all who had submitted an ABR on a pre-filled form to let
Yes.
them know they needed to send a new one?
Yes, we did, and we are seeing quite a few people. The backside of that letter is the replacement request form, and we are seeing quite a few of those. Unfortunately, what I'm worried about is, as all of you know, there was a surplus of absentee ballot mailings this year. I lost track of how many I got myself, and we're just concerned that that letter explaining that your absentee ballot request wasn't good got misinterpreted as just another absentee ballot request. We also did send out the fourth wave of the Johnson County mailing, not pre-filled, of course, because that we do what the judge tells us, and that went to the apartments, student precincts, and trailer courts about 2 weeks ago. So we are still seeing some requests coming in for that. I think the wave of mail has crested, and now we're seeing more people whose voting plan is some kind of in-person early or election day. So
Okay,
think
thanks,
most-
John.
yeah.
We have a question from Kathleen. If you'd like to unmute yourself, I'll just ask you to unmute there.
My question is, can someone who has requested a ballot and not received that ballot, can they track that on the SOS website, on the auditor's website?
Yeah, they can look and see if it's been sent. I'm not sure what the postal tracking of that is. All that we see on the Secretary of State site is the date that that ballot was sent out.
Okay, so if they might have sent the wrong ballot request, the one that was filled out,
Yeah,
and they
then what
haven't,
they will, yeah, then they will show up without a requested ballot. So you'll look up
Okay.
yourself, see, yeah, and we've had some people who've contacted me saying, hey, it says I didn't request a ballot. I know I did, and then I dig into the scans. Unfortunately, the form you used was the kind that was thrown out in court. So best thing to do if you believe you requested a ballot and you don't see it is contact us, and then we can look deeper into your voter record and see what the situation is.
okay, thanks.
Any other questions?
I had one. Can we assume that if our ballot has been received and it's recorded as such, that the signature was deemed valid on the outer envelope?
Well, I'd say it's pretty safe. What'll happen is if the ballot is received and there is a problem, you'll be getting a phone call the same day, or you'll be getting a letter within a day or two letting you know that there was a problem. Usually we have somebody, one of our best part-timers is in charge of getting all the problems called right away. And we've already had several responses to problems to fix them. So if you don't hear from us, if you see that your ballot has been received and you don't hear from us within a few days, you could be pretty comfortable.
So John, out of those
one more thing I was going to
11,000
say-
ballots that were returned, how many have you found have had problems with the ballot?
Geez. I'm thinking a dozen or so, maybe. That's not counting people who returned their ballot indicating that it was spoiled and they wanted a new one. We don't check those in, we just reissue. So I think people are doing better. I think the primary was a good exercise in training people how to vote by mail. Of course, mostly we've had real experienced voters returning their ballots. And the later it gets, the harder it's going to be to fix problems, because the number of problems will increase and the amount of time to fix the problems is finite.
Kathleen, do you have another question there? I am going to ask you to unmute, please.
If someone has a spoiled ballot, can they take the spoiled ballot to election site and surrender that ballot and vote as a person who hasn't asked
Yeah,
for
you
an
can do that.
absentee ballot?
Yeah, you can
So
do that.
that would be
So if
something
you-
to tell somebody.
Yeah. So if you make a mistake on your ballot, and I'm going to confess, I made a mistake on my ballot in the last general election. I messed up on the judges, and I had to go back to the table and get another one, which provide a lot of laughs about that. I'm supposed to know what I'm doing. If you spoil a ballot, you always have a chance to fix that. If you want a replacement ballot mailed, you package it back up. You write spoiled, request new ballot on the outside, and then I will get that and mail you. That's actually one of the things I'm in charge of. I'll mail you another ballot. If you want to take it to the parking ramp or to a satellite site, they can issue you one there. We also have people, again, we encourage people to stick with their voting plan, but if people do change their minds and decide they want to go on election day, they can take that ballot with them and hand it in at the polls. One of the concerns I've been hearing from voters is they want to see their ballot go into the machine to know it was counted. There's no way to do that early. If you want to put the ballot into the machine yourself, the only way to do that is election day. Another common question I'm getting is about signature matching. Signature matching was part of the voter ID law in 2017. The courts overturned that. So we're not looking to see whether you used to use your middle initial and you don't anymore, or if you changed your signature. All we're looking for is the signature there? Does it seem like it's the right person, or did you make a mistake and switch it with your spouse? The other thing is power of attorney signatures we can't accept. So other than that, if your name is messy, if your signature is messy, we even let doctors vote in Johnson County. So
That's good. Hey, Kraswicks, I believe you have a question.
Yeah, it was related to that. I was just, it was helpful, but being a doctor and knowing my, I was,
Oops.
the question was, what signature
it
were
hurts when I
they
do
matching?
this.
Were they matching to? And the reason I asked that, I mean, I guess it doesn't matter, but you know, when you do your driver's license now, it's one of those signature pads, which is really difficult to
Yeah.
reproduce. And I just had a question about that. The second question relates to spoiled ballots. If somebody screws up, like for example, on the judges or one of the other ones where they voted too many, does that invalidate the whole ballot or just for that particular election?
Just that office. So if somebody calls me up and says, okay, I voted yes and no on the judges, you know, their vote for president is still going to count. Their vote for Congress is still going to count. It's just going to be that one office that they goofed up. And sometimes people say, oh, that's okay, I don't care that much. And sometimes people say, send me a new ballot. So.
Okay, go ahead, Kathleen.
If someone doesn't have a driver's license or one of those things that people can get to identify themselves when they don't have a driver's license, they can ask for the PIN number, right?
Yeah, so the we have two different kinds of voter cards in Iowa. Some of you have been down this road with me before. Most people get what is officially called a voter confirmation card that says in big letters on it, not to be used as identification at the polls. That's for people who have a valid driver's license or non-driver ID. If you have an out-of-state license or no license, then we do what is called a voter identification card that has got a barcode, a signature line, and a PIN number on it. Anybody can request one of those. So if, for example, somebody has misplaced their driver's license, we can print one of those and mail it to you.
So they would call your office and you would send it out, or they could pick it up.
If they haven't moved, they can pick it up. Normally we mail them. Anybody who's moved, we have to mail the card the first time. That's our confirmation of address. But if you haven't moved, you can ask and pick. Well, I would recommend calling ahead because the building is still closed.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, John. Go ahead, Jane, and then we'll do Deborah next.
I just wondered, I understand you can take your absentee ballot to the poll and vote using that and turn it in there. Is that right?
Well, you could take your absentee ballot to the poll. You hand it in unvoted. The catch there is that the poll workers aren't allowed to look at it. So you say it's unvoted, it's unvoted. And then you'll be given a regular ballot to put into the ballot reader. Now, if you have somebody else's ballot, you can't turn it in at the precinct on election day. You have to turn it in at the office.
Okay, so even if I go early and I have my absentee ballot, that I just hand that in and they give me a new one to fill out?
Well, so we're talking about an early voting location. What we recommend at an early voting location is that you mark that mailed ballot unless you've spoiled it and need to exchange it that way. So if you've already got the mailed ballot, the ballot they're going to hand you at a satellite site or at the parking ramp is the same thing, and it's going to be processed in the same way. So you just, if you want to mark it there, we have booths at the ramp too for the walk-up voters. So you could just, if you want to grab a booth and mark it and then give it to Gary Smith. How many of you know Gary Smith? He is our ballot box watcher most days.
Yeah, I know Gary.
The absentee ballot, you can, if you take it to the poll as a satellite, early voting, you can still use your ballot. But on election day, you hand in the ballot and you can vote just regular.
Right, correct. So you can turn in.
If you've got an absentee ballot, you can't vote unless you bring it in.
Well, If it's election day, you requested an absentee ballot and you don't have it, again, we'd encourage you to hang on to it, keep it in a safe place. But if you don't have it, the poll workers can call the office. They can confirm that your mail ballot was not returned, and then they can allow you to vote a regular ballot, because we'll void it out then. Now, that's a little labor intensive, both on the polling place end and on the auditor's office end, but we'd rather, I mean, we want to do the work and we want people to vote, but just you should hang on to your ballot and hand it in. And like Janice said earlier, best thing you can do, stick with your voting plan if at all possible.
Hey, thanks, John. Looks like we have time for one more question, and that is from Deborah D. John, did you say power of attorney signatures will not be accepted?
Yes, that's correct. That's specifically excluded under state law. If you have somebody who you're a caretaker for who is immobile and unable to sign, you would use the format. Let's say I couldn't sign my name. I would have my wife do it. John Deeth by Connie Steele, but do not say power of attorney. And then that's acceptable. You may also, if you're in that situation, want to get a form that's called affidavit of voter requesting assistance. We have those at our office because that's a thing that will help protect that voter if, for example, there was going to be a challenge to the vote. There were some challenges in 2004 arguing that caretakers voted a ballot for people. And so if you've got a form that says, I'm John Deeth and I asked my wife to help me, that will protect you and make it less likely that your vote would be challenged.
Okay, thanks a lot, John. Sure appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody. Keep up the good work. And
Thank you, John.
It's a fun time. It's a very busy time, but it's a fun time. So I hope to see some of you in passing. I'm not working at the drive up very much, but I'm around, and knock on the window and wave at me or something. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
John.
John. Bye-bye.
All right, that was wonderful. And I just want to remind you, if you're here tonight, that I hope John answered your questions if you had specific issues, but also I'm hoping that all of us can become good resources for other people who have questions, because there are a lot of them this year. So please do your best, and remember that the auditor's office website is a good place to go, and there's been some other resources that have been mentioned as we've gone along tonight in chat also, so please take note of those. I'd like to transition next to hearing updates from some of the campaigns, including the coordinated campaign. And this is the part of the program where we are hoping to further inform you, but also inspire you to get involved and become active. One of the messages that I shared rather frequently with people who were doing phone banking today is that the margins in Iowa are going to be very small. We have very tight races. The presidential race is tight. The Senate race is tight. Rita Hart's race in our district is tight. Lonnie Pokrabic is tight. That's one that a lot of us are interested in. So we're working for, hopefully we're going to have that margin of victory, but it's not going to be a very big margin, which means that everything we can do to help get a vote to the vote in, for Democrats is precious. It is worth its weight in gold. So I'd like you to listen to the updates that we'll have from the campaigns about what they are doing on our behalf to get the vote in. But I'd also plead with you to listen to what they have to say about what we can do to achieve those very small margins that we hope for and need to win here in Iowa. So the next part of the program, I'm not going to come back on in between each person, so I'm just going to run real quick here through who is going to talk to you. The next person is going to be Shoshana Hemley, who's going to talk to you about the coordinated campaign. That's the statewide campaign on behalf of all the Democrats on the ticket. and they are working hard in particular to get the vote out among Democrats. That's their major focus right now. And then we'll hear from Tricia Zabrowski, who's going to talk about some of the groups here in Iowa City who have been teaming up to make phone calls. You've probably heard of groups like East Side Dems, West Side Dems, North Side Dems, and so Tricia is going to share some information about those. Karis Edwards will update us on the Rita Hart campaign and what we might still do for Rita. Jack Siegel is going to talk to us about the Lonnie Polkravic campaign. And then last, Gail Ramberg will talk to us about postcards to Iowa voters, which is, they have really cute postcards. She may have one to show you, but I was going to hold one up for you. They're fun to write, and they've been trying to help flip seats in some of the House districts around the state. So Shoshana, I'm going to turn it over to you next to talk a little bit about the coordinated campaign and tell us why you need us and how we can help you.
Hi, am I able to share my screen?
Just 1 second.
So I'm Shoshi. I'm a organizing fellow with Battleground Iowa. We're the coordinated campaign for the Iowa Democrats up and down the ballot, electing Joe Biden, Teresa Greenfield, and everyone else in between. All right, perfect. And I've got a little presentation here. So right now we are in the last few weeks and we're trying to get out the vote. So what are our goals right now? The first thing is to chase every absentee ballot request form back to the auditor's office, and then chase every ballot back to the auditor's office and do so early. And then last but not least, turn out Dems and mobilize low frequency voters who are supporting Democrats and those undecideds who we may be voted for Obama, but then voted for Trump, who we want to get out for Joe Biden and Teresa Greenfield and everybody else. So how are we going to do this? We have virtual staging locations over Zoom. So phone banking has never been easier. You don't have to leave your house to do this. There will be 2 specifically dedicated to Johnson County, and volunteers will come to this virtual staging location and be trained on how to phone bank and stay in that Zoom as they make calls with other members of the community. Now you're going to get a email the week of your phone banking shift that you're signed up for, and in that email there's going to be a Zoom link, and you're going to hop on that Zoom at the time of the shift you've been scheduled for, and they will train you on everything. So it's all super easy. Any technical things, anything you don't know, they will answer for you on that Zoom. So we are going to win this election before November 3rd. With that in mind, here are the major dates that our virtual staging locations will be open. And these are the dates that we need you for. So we just had our first weekend of action yesterday and today, and it's been going really successfully. And then we have our next one next weekend, October 17th and 18th. And then we start with the Get Out the Early Vote, which starts October 20th through 29th. And we have a special focus on that weekend, the 24th and the 25th. And then last but not least, we've got those last couple days, that last final stretch, October 31st to Election Day. And we've got shifts up all the way until throughout November 3rd. Now, what other things we're doing? Texting, bilingual outreach, with Spanish speaking voters. And then also using out-of-state capacity to fill in the gaps. You can recruit your friends out of state. If you're out of state, you can still volunteer. I've got friends from Oklahoma and everywhere else. And then action from other departments, targeted digital ads, TV ads, social media, mail programs, and then other forms of ballot collection and collaboration with congressionals. But really what we're focusing on and what we need you to do is action. We are phone banking to get out the vote. When we're phone banking, we don't care about money. We're not asking you to ask people for money. We're asking to get volunteers and to get people to get out the vote. And we need thousands in order to do this. As I mentioned earlier, we are, trying to chase those ballots, trying to get people to vote early. And once we can do that, we can really turn our manpower over to those undecideds, those low frequency Dems. And that's why we need so much manpower, because that's what's going to decide the selection. And as someone said earlier, it's going to be a small margin, and so that's why we need so many volunteers, and we need every single one of you to phone bank as many shifts as you possibly can. So the most crucial thing that you can do is phone bank with us on these key dates, and you can recruit your friends, your family, and everyone else. So I'm going to drop a link in the chat right now. And with this link, you can sign up to volunteer. And that's all. So I just hope that you can fill out that form and sign up for as many phone banking shifts with us as possible.
Thank you. Thank you. Very good. Very informative. Very inspiring. I think Tricia is going to tell us about the ciders, as they're now known. The ciders around town. Tricia, are you with us?
Unmute myself. Here I am. Hi, everybody. My name is Tricia Zabrowski, and I am a member of the Iowa City North Side Dems. We model ourselves after the East Side Dems. They've been really making it happen since 2008. We just started actually a few months ago, and then there's also a West Side Dems group. The Iowa City neighborhood Dem groups are groups of people from all sides of the city who have gotten together and partnered with Battleground Iowa. We engage in phone banking, text banking, sign delivery. We also have in our individual groups things like cookie and cake delivery for callers who make the most calls, or the first caller who calls someone he, she, or they knows. And so it's a way of making community, forming community, neighborhood community around the drive to get out the vote. If you know anyone either on the north side, the west side, or the east side who wants to join our communities, you can look on Facebook, where all of us have our own individual Facebook pages, or I'll drop in the chat the email address for the North Side Dems, and we can get you connected. Other things that we're doing involve working with Brandon Jennings, who's developed these great t-shirts. I've got one on called Vote Early Iowa City. I don't know if you've seen these. And on the back, I'll turn around, is all of the great information that John Deeth just shared with us about deadlines and voting sites and things like that. So if you're interested in that, they're $15 a piece, and you can email the North Side Dems, and we'll link you with that. Anyway, North Side Dems, we have over 100 people signed up to work with us. I'm sure the East Side Dems have more, and the West Side Dems have as much. So come and join us and meet your neighbors.
Thank you, Tricia. And I met Tricia at a phone bank this afternoon already. Yes, good job. I think Karis is going to fill us in on what the Rita Hart campaign is doing in addition to the coordinated campaign. Have we got Karis here?
Hey there. Yep. Thanks so much for having me, guys. So just real quick, just want to boost everything that Shoshi said. That's awesome. That's exactly what we're helping out with in some parts of our work right now with the Heart campaign, is the Get Out the Vote effort. Also, we are still making persuasion calls on Rita's behalf on weekdays until October 21st. So basically, as she mentioned, we are doing Get Out the Vote calls every single day starting October 21st. But until then, we are trying to make the best use of that time until then. So tomorrow all the way through Friday, and then the 19th and the 20th, we'll be making persuasion calls for Rita. Like I've said before, we are just trying to make sure we cover all our bases. So hopefully we're going to see a beautiful giant blue wave for all of our Democratic candidates when all the results come in. But we do want to make sure that no matter what, we maintain this congressional seat that has been blue for so long, and is something we really believe reliably we can nail down in this district if we really push hard for it. So if you are looking for something to do on weekday nights, this week or next, we'd love to have you making calls with Rita. If you are looking for get out the vote information, I'm just going to send that one more time. You can sign up for shifts directly through the links that I'm just sending in the chat. And we would super love to have you. We are feeling really excited. We had an event in Johnson County, a big drive-in event in Johnson County, which was fantastic. And that was really, really great to get everyone, you know, hyped up, pumped, ready for the get out the vote push. We've had some backyard talks going on, which you've hopefully seen mention of on social media, Twitter and Facebook, and other press sources, and encouraging folks to write letters to the editor in support of Rita. If that's something you're interested in, you're certainly welcome to let me know. I'll put my number in the chat. And overall, just really excited for this section of the campaign. So feel free to get in touch with any questions. I am, you know, full time through the election, and we would love to have you on board, and mostly just really excited to have you volunteering in a way that you're excited about to really bring this home for Rita and all of our Democrats. So thank you so much.
Karis, I have a quick question for you, and I may have missed this. Did you explain the difference between persuasion calls for Rita and GOTV calls for Battleground?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. Basically, for persuasion calls for Rita, we are going to be calling people who are, as far as we can tell, due to a number of different kind of data things we throw into it, people who we suspect voted for both Donald Trump and Dave Lobusak in 2016. So hopefully lots of those people have shifted to be Biden voters. They're not voting the top of the ticket. Maybe they didn't even vote the top of the ticket last election. And that's why, you know, there's kind of a lot of different things happening in the overall polling situation that year. But we're looking to make sure that we secure those folks who are willing to vote for Dave Lobusak, even if they have been voting other ways on the top of the ticket. So some of them are going to be undecided. Some of them are going to be like, nope, I'm Republican. Some of them are going to be like, yep, I'm voting straight Democrat. And we are mostly targeting those undecided folks to say, hey, Rita's a great candidate. She's really, you know, the things she stands for are probably things you agree with based on general polling of this area. And she's a great representative of this district. Would you be willing to consider her? Will you look for more information on her? Can we answer any questions about her? We get you trained beforehand. There's a Zoom training, and they're usually a little smaller. I'll lead all of those. And that's kind of the persuasion end of things. And then for the get out the vote calls, those are calling more of our base of Democrats or folks who have previously told us they're just undecided, and just making sure those are people who've already received their absentee ballots. So we're just making sure that they have taken those absentee ballots and put them in the mail or driven to their county auditor's office, or they have a plan to do something else productive with those ballots. So that is a little more intensive on the information side of things. It's a little bit of a longer training, just because we need to make sure we have really clear information about how to vote and where to vote and the times and the instructions and how to surrender your ballot and that kind of thing. But it is definitely sometimes calling into a base that can be a little less grumpy, I would say. But both are really important types of work. So whichever you feel like you might be more suited for, or whichever works better with your schedule, we would love to have you.
Thanks, Karis. And I will mention that right now, Battleground, at least for the next week or so, Battleground Iowa is doing weekend shifts. And so we won't be calling again until next weekend. However, you may call any or every night this week that you want to call for Rita Hart or for Lonnie Pulkravic. And Jack's going to tell us about that. Are you here, Jack?
I am.
Thank you, Karis. Okay, Jack, let's go.
Well, thank you so much, Roseanne, and thank you to the Potluck Insurgency as well. You guys have been incredible supporters of Lonnie's campaign from the get-go. Lonnie Pulkravic has been the sheriff of Johnson County for the last 15 and a half years, and he is now taking on Bobby Kaufman. You may know him as the son of the Republican Party chair of Iowa, Jeff Kaufman. You may also know him as the gentleman that introduced the Suck It Up Buttercup legislation, that absolute gem in the Iowa House. That is unfortunately what our legislature has been known for recently, that as well as the most restrictive abortion ban in the country, regularly underfunding education, increasing accessibility for guns in public places, and reducing common sense gun regulation. So there's a lot at stake at the state level. I'm honored to follow after this great group talking about federal races here, because we do need to win in all of those places. But we also have a lot at stake in the State House here. And as Roseanne mentioned, in the State House races especially, some of these are decided by a handful of votes. In one district in 2018, it was actually by 9 votes that we decided whether or not someone would be represented by Democrats or Republicans. In total, 546 votes the other way in 4 races across the state would have put us in a Democratic majority. So every single phone call that is made really makes a difference at the Iowa State House level. We're calling folks just similarly to what you've heard here. We're actually doing them every day as well. So you can split up your time. You can find whatever shift works for you. I know Roseanne's calling on Mondays, I believe, and we appreciate that. So whenever you're able to, just sign up for a shift here. I put some information in the chat as well. You can either sign up via Mobilize, give me a text, give me a call, or shoot me an email. But we will be calling folks that are the GOTV universe as well, trying to get out that Democratic vote and focus on some of the persuasion voters as well. Some of those independents in the district that have shown a likelihood to vote for Joe Biden and are still undecided at this point, and that may have voted for Bobby Kaufman in the past as well. So we'd love to have you join and help out. You know, there's so many issues at stake in the State House, not only just education, response to coronavirus, healthcare, but especially this year, as related to our congressional seats, redistricting is on the ballot. And right now we have a nonpartisan commission that redistricts in a very fair way, excuse me, in a very fair way in the state of Iowa. If you want to trust Republicans like they asked us to with the Supreme Court justices, then I will defer to you on that one. But balance in the state legislature is the best way to ensure that we keep our districts fair for people like Rita Hart, for people like Abby Finkenauer and Cindy Axney and JD Schulten as well. We want fair districts, and that is on the ballot this year. So make sure you volunteer at the State House level. Thank you so much for the time here, and please reach out using any of the links or the contact information there.
Great, thank you, Jack. And I would mention too that, you know, in Johnson County, we all know Lonnie because he's been our sheriff for the last 15 years. But in my judgment from my experience on the phones for Lonnie in Cedar County, he has much less name recognition there, which is one reason why we really need to get on the phones for him. He really needs the help, and we're not doing down ballot candidate specific discussions for GOTV, for battleground GOTV. So Lonnie really needs to have us get to work for him. Thank you, Jack.
Thank you, Roseanne.
All right, we have one more, and that, oh, Emily, did you have a question? No, okay. She was waving goodbye to you. So we have one more speaker, Gail Ramberg, who's going to tell us a little bit about Postcards for Iowa, and then we'll close out for tonight.
Alrighty, thank you, Roseanne. As she said, my name is Gail Ramberg. I'm with Postcards to Iowa Voters and a group called Action Iowa, and I'm here to talk about postcards with you. We are a group of about 1,200 Iowans and a few from other states who have joined in more recently, writing to Iowa voters in support of state legislative candidates. With the idea that if we can get people excited about voting for the legislative candidates, not only will that help us hopefully flip the Iowa House, as was just mentioned pretty extensively, because that's really important, but then that also trickles up and then will help the rest of the federal candidates as well. We provide the scripts, the voter addresses, and postcards. We actually have a hub in Iowa City. So most of the postcards, when they get requested, get dropped off, or they can be picked up also. So we provide the script, the voter addresses, and the postcards, and the volunteers provide the elbow grease and the postage. So far this year, we've written over 100,000 postcards to voters in Iowa, which was a pretty exciting milestone for us to hit. The focus right now on the addresses that we're distributing is on people who are Democrats or lean Democrat, but are inconsistent voters. And it's a GOTV message right now that basically we're hoping kind of cuts through some of the noise that everyone's getting, all kind of the same message. So our message right now is that, hey, there's a lot going on. There's COVID, there's all kinds of stuff that, you know, and a list of those things. More than ever before, your vote really matters, is what we're trying to the message that we're trying to get across. People seem to love writing postcards because it's super easy. You can do it while you're watching TV. We have people write postcards while they're in the carpool line. You know, they just keep them in the car, they keep them in their purse or their bag or whatever. They can just write them anytime. And honestly, people like it because it's super easy. And as much as we would like people to drop lit and make phone calls and do all of those things that are super important, we all know that there's some people that just won't do that as much as we want. So writing postcards is a way to give those people something to do that still includes like a voter contact.
All right, thank you, Gail. And I would add that, you know, you can make phone calls and write postcards. There's no rule or law saying that you can't do both. So, all right, I think Jane Cranston, unless anybody has any questions about volunteering, I think Jane Cranston is going to take us out tonight.
There's a couple questions, Roseanne, for you.
Are there? Okay, all right. Let's see.
This is Trisha. I have a quick question. I've been trying to connect with text banking and have been unsuccessful through Battleground Iowa or Victory 2020. Do you know anything about that? Or does anyone know anything about that?
I don't, but I can check with Michael Berkowitz. I know there's some going on in Iowa. The IDP is doing it, but I don't think it's a major effort. I think they're relying more on phone calls.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to add to that? Do you know any more about it, about text banking, or anybody else?
Yeah, so with Battleground Iowa, at least, we actually are somewhat at capacity with the amount of texters.
Okay, that's what I think.
So we don't really need any more, but we would love any more phone bankers.
Okay, cool.
Great, thanks. Was there another question?
Sharon, do you have a question? I see your hands up. No, okay.
I think Jackie might have one. Jackie, unmute yourself.
I'd like to do the postcards, but did she tell you how to get them? Who to contact?
Yeah, Gail, do you have a link to post or some information you can give us about postcards?
Yep, I posted it in the chat. You can find us on Facebook at Postcards to Iowa Voters, or you can also go directly to the link that I posted. It's bit.ly/Iowa postcards.
Hey, Jackie, I'll email that to you.
Thank you very much. I'd be happy to do it. Thank you.
Thanks, Jackie.
I do have a question.
Okay, Sharon.
Sorry. Will all of the chat stuff be available after we all say goodbye so that I can download it? I always forget my passwords for my whatever. So I want to download everything after everybody's off so I don't embarrass myself in front of you all.
Ed, that's a question for you.
Yeah, what I'll do is, I'll leave it on here for a while.
Okay.
Also, I'll plan on saving it as well.
Okay, thank you.
I can just email it to people if you want.
Oh, that's true.
And Ed recorded the meeting tonight also, if anybody wants to come back.
I'll try to send it out.
Great. Thanks, Jane.
That should be fine.
Good.
All right.
All right.
Well, there's no more questions, right? Oh,
Yeah.
Deborah?
Yeah, I'm wondering where can we get signs? I wasn't able to get them this week, and yeah.
I can answer that one. We have gone through a lot of signs, but actually we're going to have a bunch of signs on Wednesday, if that works for you. We're going to be actually there's a bus coming in town. Just found out about it. Campaign bus. We're going to have speakers. It's going to be a big deal. We're going to be in the Coralville Community Aquatic Center parking lot starting at 9:30 on Wednesday. And they will have a bunch of signs and other stuff to give away. Then we're going to head on over to Solon, and we're going to be there in the afternoon. And then again on the 20th, the bus will be coming back, and we'll be in Iowa City on the 20th. That's when they have the early voting going on with the university as well as at the Iowa City Public Library. I don't know that location. So Alan, your question?
Yeah, Ed, regarding that, will you have the cardboard signs as well, and the non-yard signs?
I heard we will. I have not seen what they will have. But yeah, we just found out about it. We're just putting things together this weekend. I'll post that on the Facebook for the Johnson County Democrats, as well as the jcdems.org site. But yeah, I think they're going to have placards, so you can stick those in your window.
Okay, yeah, because some areas don't allow yard signs, and I've been looking. I've tried all over the place, and nobody's been able to help me.
I have bumper stickers, which I have been trying to disseminate, but it's pretty hard with the pandemic.
Yeah.
They're on my porch. The beauty of bumper stickers is people don't steal them. And that has been a big problem, people stealing the signs.
Yeah.
So if you'd like them, they are free and they are on my front porch, 3792 Lois Lane, Northeast, North Liberty. I can put that. Ed, would you put that in the chat?
Sure.
Okay, thanks. So if you'd like one, help yourself. They're just sitting on a chair on the porch.
And so you'll let us know where we can pick up signs. Is there a non-Facebook site, or can you email the details on that?
Yeah, for the signs, that'll be at the Coralville Community Aquatic Center. That's part of Mercer Park over there. No, is that Mercer?
No, it's by Northwest-
No, it's another park.
Junior High. It's by Northwest Junior High.
Oh, is that St. Morrison Park?
Morrison Park, exactly.
And when will it be available? When did you say?
9:30 in the morning, Wednesday.
Are those signs for everybody, like Rita and everybody?
We will have Greenfield for sure. Karis, will we have heart signs as well?
If we have them, I promise they will be at that location.
Yeah, please get us some.
Yes, but possibly we are running low on Johnson County yard signs, so I'm really sorry. But if we have them, they will be at that location, I promise.
Okay.
And we'll fill you in if that changes.
Is there a location or an office in Iowa City to pick up some of this stuff?
There isn't, and unfortunately, we have not had an office all year because of the pandemic, even though Google says we do, and they typically say we're open. But we've been trying for months to tell Google not to take that off of there. We have not been successful in doing that. So, no. But again, actually, let me give another address here, or a link. It's jcdems.org. What I would suggest you do is go to that site, jcdems.org, scroll down to the bottom, and click on subscribe. And there you will get subscribed to the newsletter. We send out a newsletter weekly that has all the details about everything going on locally. So that's where you get the information. So.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Should we go back to Jane? Are you ready, Jane?
Yes, I sure am.
Okay.
On behalf of the Potluck Insurgency, I want to thank all of our speakers tonight. Your guidance gives us the information that we need to redouble our efforts for this last stretch of the race. Special thank you to David Griswold. That whole thing was delightful. I thoroughly enjoyed it. When I hear people talk about Donald Trump and they try to describe what he is or what he has done, it never seems like enough. To say that the regime is corrupt does not begin to describe it. To say that he is cruel isn't enough. To say that he is without integrity is too pale a description for what's been happening. The word that best describes Donald Trump to me is monster. He is the monster, and his followers who support a monster are little better. As Obama said recently, we can't be complacent or smug or feel that somehow it's so obvious that this president hasn't done a good job because he won once. This is serious business. Whatever you've done so far is not enough. And I hate that line. Thank you all for all that you've done, but now is the time for the final sprint of a very long race. We are called to push harder, to dig deeper, to find the strength within, because never has an election mattered more. Stay safe, everybody.
You too.
Thank you, Jane. Thank you, everybody, for coming.